The Soxs are winning, Cards are losing, and Bryce Harper's back. First pitch is next, guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 29 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pyatt. With me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sism. Brother, what a week, man. It's Sunday. You were at graduation all day yesterday, helping out the youth of America. Good for you. How are you doing?
Doing well. A little bit tired today, but hey, we're gonna bring it in this episode. This is gonna be a fun one,
dude. Baseball. The best thing about baseball is just how you can think you have it all figured out, and then it is just completely the opposite of where we thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And let's start talking about it, okay? Let's start with where do we stand. We're going to take a look at these standings here. And Will and I have been talking about a way to maybe make this a little bit less Cody just reading random numbers. So we're still finding the sweet spot on this. But we do think it's important to kind of hit on the standings to let everybody know kind of where we're living here in Major League Baseball at the beginning of May. So let's take a look at the American League East. Man, oh man, what a week it's been for these teams. Tampa Bay is still with 7 losses. They're 27-7. They're 5 games up on the next team, which is Baltimore. And then right behind them, the third place Boston Red Sox. That's really exciting, right, man? And then
what?
I know. Dude, they're losing right now as we record, so I'm real happy. Will texted me and was like, you got a second to record this episode? I was like, let's do it before they lose. Because as of right now, we are in the middle of an 8-game winning streak. But as of 45 minutes from now, it might be over. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then who would have thought? Toronto and the Yankees in 4th and 5th. Not a lot of people had that, huh, Will?
That's true. Man, I tell you what, the AL East is just crazy. It's crazy. All the teams are really good.
Yeah. Oh, it's stacked, man. It is stacked. And then I'll hit on the other 2 divisions real quick. The AL Central is kind of a mess, man. You got one team over 500, and that's the team in first place, Minnesota at 19-15. And then Detroit's in second place. They're 3 games back, followed by Cleveland, the White Sox, and Kansas City. Kansas City is steeped in a very tough series right now with, I'd say, like a top 30 team in baseball, the Oakland A's. And they are on the brink of getting swept by Oakland, which I think if that happens, you get relegated to AAA. So
yes.
There's going to be a new team in Kansas City. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. Let's look at the West. Speaking of the great Oakland Athletics, soon to be Las Vegas Athletics. You got Texas in first place, 19-13. LA Angels still holding on. They're a 1 game back, and then Houston 1 game over 500. They seem to be coming into their own, but then. They are in a pretty tough series right now with the Mariners. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Mariners are 16-17, and then Oakland, of course. Not going to talk about them. Takeaways from the American League, Will. What do you got, man?
Man, the East is amazing. To be honest with you, I know Tampa's gotten off to a crazy start, and I don't expect any sort of a collapse. I think that they're legit. But, honestly, any of those 5 teams – I wouldn't be shocked if any of those 5 teams made the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked, other than maybe Tampa, if any of them actually missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
It seems like the East is going to get at least 3 teams in. The
maybe
Central,
4.
Yeah, maybe even 4, because the Central's bad. The Guardians aren't anywhere close to as good as I thought they were going to be. I know it's still early, but I don't know, and I don't even think the Twins are great. I think that they're good enough for that division, as long as Buxton can stay on the field, which is a big if, as we've talked about.
Sure.
But the Central's a mess. Those bottom 3 teams are not good at all. And then the West is kind of weird too. Houston's not the same. I'm not ready to write them off. Don't get me wrong, but. Yeah. Houston's just not the same. They don't look like the juggernaut like they've looked like the past few years. The pitching's not quite as good. The lineup's not quite as good. So yeah, I'm interested to see. I feel like the door is open for either the Angels or the Rangers for this season, and let's see what happens. I feel like the door is cracked open, and let's see if either one of those teams, and maybe even Seattle, if any of those take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, injuries will get you, man, and that's kind of what they're dealing with in Houston. Before we move on to the National League, you kind of had this idea, and I loved it, man. Let's bring out the panic meter a little bit, just kind of quick. I got 3 teams for the American League, and then when we do National League, I got 3 teams in the National League. So let's just call it scale 1 to 10, okay? How worried are you about the Seattle Mariners? Let's hit them first.
I would say a 4. I think the Mariners are going to be one of those teams that throughout the season they're just going to keep kind of figuring it out. Mm-hmm. Teoscar Hernandez has been as bad as he can be.
Oh, we'll talk about him.
Yeah, their rotation hasn't been great yet. Now, if Bryce Miller is legit, the young guy that started out perfect in his debut, if he's legit, man, that adds a whole new dimension to that team to go with Castillo, Kirby, some of those guys. Maybe replace Robbie Ray, who they thought was going to be a major standout in that rotation, but he's gone for the year. So I'm not too overly worried about Seattle. I would like to see their lineup start to heat up, though. They need a guy like Ty France to really start producing, and he's been cold for the past several weeks.
He is, yeah. He was been dropped. He was dropped in our home league, and he was dropped in another one of the leagues I'm in. And he went 3 for 5 the other night. So maybe he's picking it up. He's definitely a guy I got my eye on. Pretty much agree with everything you said on them. It is early, and their star player Julio is not playing up to at all like he did last season. So maybe a little sophomore slump. But again, last April, he started out pretty similar.
He did.
Let's let the season sink in a little bit and see what he turns into. Next team, last place team, we're going to hit on it, the New York Yankees, man. Mm-hmm. What do you got on them?
Oh, man, I'm going to turn this one up to about a 6.5. Let's just go 7. Let's round it up to a 7.
I like that.
Here's why. If they were in any other division in baseball, it would be way lower than that.
Yeah.
But since they're in the AL East and we touched on how good this division looks, man, I am worried if I'm a Yankees fan. If something were to happen to Garrett Cole, and I know he's durable, like he doesn't normally, have any sort of issues with injuries, but if something happened to Garrett Cole, you're looking at a disaster.
Yeah.
So they're hanging on by a thread. I know Aaron Judge has been out for the past week or so. Hopefully he's supposed to be back early this next week. So hopefully he is fully healthy. Yeah. If you're a Yankees fan, because you're going to need every bit of him to try to climb out of the cellar currently in the AL East. Because, man, I don't know about you, Cody, but I just don't see any of these teams in the AL East really falling off the map. I mean, I just think division's really good. I think Baltimore, I'd love to see them have a little bit more consistent starting pitching, but their bullpen is so good. If they can get 5 innings consistently out of whoever they throw out there to start the game, man, that bullpen is lights out.
Yeah, oh, man, I tell you what, I was watching the Peacock Sunday Game of the Week here, and Yanier, I don't know how to say his name, Yanier Cano, I believe is how you say it, but he's unbelievable. Came over in the trade last year with the Twins as kind of a throw-in piece, and he has turned out to be maybe the best player they got back in that deal. Yeah, I'm nervous about the Yankees as well. I mean, I'm not nervous because I am a Red Sox fan. Claire and I were outside yesterday playing with the puppy, and ever since vacation, I'm a sucker for having baseball games on the radio. So I said, hey, does it make me a bad person if I listen to the Yankees game on the radio because I want to drink Yankees tears? I want it, man. And it was everything I hoped for. It's been, they're just not very – once you get past the first 4 in that lineup – a lot of Yankees fans were clamoring for these kids and Volpe, Peraza, and they have just not panned out. And so it's so early, and I'm not saying anybody's done. Everybody's super tight in this division. I mean, 2 through 5, obviously, the Rays may have locked it up depending on how the next 10 days go because they go to Yankee Stadium after the next series. And so that'll be that'll be pretty telling. Garrett Cole, I wanted to look it up because we had talked about him. I know he started today, and he was doing pretty nice.
No, the Rays have mounted a comeback.
They have. It's 7-6, and he got beat up for 5 earned runs. So, man, they just don't like playing in Tampa. And I'll be honest, I think they put Judge on the IL because they didn't want him running around on that turf. I have never seen it in baseball as long as I've been watching it. A team have the number of another team like it feels like the Rays have the Yankees number. So we're both here for it, as is obviously your primary Rays fan, and I have grown to root for them with you. Yeah, love it, man. Hey, next team, and I think I know where you're going to land on this, the Chicago White Sox.
Dude, it's bad if you're a White Sox fan.
Yeah.
And I love Tim Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I like Andrew Vaughn. I think he's going to be a really nice player. But, man, I don't know what the problem is going even back to last year.
Yeah.
But I'm at a 10 if you call me I'm at an 11.
Yeah.
If I'm a White Sox fan. I mean, this ain't working.
Yeah.
Like they're going to have to, I mean, unless something drastically changes in the next 3 weeks,
mm-hmm.
and they win like 10 out of their next 12 or 13 out of their next 16 games or something like that, which I think is totally unfeasible at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something like that happens, I think they're going to have to like blow this team up.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have to get what you can get for a guy like Lance Lynn. You're going to have to, I think you're going to, as an organization, you're going to have to soul search. And I'm just going to throw out a couple of names. Is Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Lucas Giolito.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the White Sox front office,
yeah,
you got to figure out, all right, can I build around any of these guys?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you better start figuring out contingency plans, because I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if people were just wrong on how talented they thought these guys were, but this is not working. It's an epic disaster, and if I'm a White Sox fan, I have no hope.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's pretty bad. I mean, I don't even know if there's – I mean, even their players that aren't replacement level are playing replacement level. I saw yesterday that their team batting average is like 225. So that's just not going to win a lot of baseball games. And even their good pitchers, you know, you got Lance Lynn. He's been roughed up. But Dylan Cease has
Cease has been rough.
He is taking it in the teeth the last couple outings. And
Giolito's actually pitched well.
Yeah. Yep. It's obviously season's not over. We're early May. They can. I mean, the Braves did it a couple years ago, but there's going to have to be a lot of dominoes fall the right way for these guys.
The only saving grace for them, I'll say this, is they are in probably the worst division in baseball. Yep. And so if Minnesota and if the Guardians keep kind of just treading water, and if somehow, some way, the White Sox just figure it out somehow, some way, that's their only saving grace, is they're in the AL Central. Correct.
And I will say, I don't even think it's too early to say this. There's one team coming out of that division. So whoever takes the crown is going to be that team. So let's see everybody gun for it, man. Maybe at least stay competitive. What I don't want to see is what it kind of looks like right now, which is one team, whether it be Cleveland or the Twins, and then everybody else is just sitting there. I want to see some rivalry games in August and September, and I want to see moves made at the deadline to try and make your teams better to take this division, because of the fact there's only going to be one in the playoffs. Let's move to the National League, Will, and I think the National League is starting to fall in some senses kind of how we expected it to. Atlanta Braves are just doing the dang thing. 24-11, they have a 6.5 game lead, so kind of like what the Rays got going on in the American League. Over the Mets, who have fallen to 500, they're just dealing with all kinds of pitching issues. And then following them, you got Miami, Philadelphia, and then Washington. They're all within 3 games of one another. So still pretty tight division for that second place spot. Pittsburgh holding on to the first place spot at 20-14, followed by Milwaukee at 18-15. They're a game and a half back, and then the Cubs kind of cooled off. They had a little stretch where they lost 7 out of 8 games last week, coming into this week. Cincinnati Reds, they're hanging in. They're playing okay ball. And I think maybe the biggest surprise in Major League Baseball, and we'll talk about them in a second, St. Louis at 10-24. They are in the midst of an 8-game losing streak. They're 1-9 in their last 10, and they look terrible. I don't think anybody. I think everybody. Dude, I was listening to our preview episode driving to work the other day. We were so confident in St. Louis.
Yes.
We both said this is the easiest division to call.
Yep.
And I think you can look at the talent on the Pirates and say, oh, they might be a 500 team, or they might be 10 games over 500. But nobody was saying that St. Louis was going to struggle the way that they have.
Nope.
So that's absolutely unbelievable. And then as we move to the West, I mean, it's all right in the world or what, because the Dodgers are back on top. They're half game up on the Diamondbacks, hanging in. San Diego and San Francisco, a couple games back of them, and then Colorado, you can kind of just cut them on out of this. That we will not be talking about them in October. But boy, those top three, San Diego, Arizona, and the Dodgers, that is gear up, man, because it's going to be a fun summer watching these three. Let's talk about our panic meter. Let's go to that St. Louis Cardinals team. Where are we landing with these guys, man?
It's an 11. It's as high as you can go.
They're the White Sox of the National League.
Yeah, maybe even worse, though, because the White Sox, after last year, people were like, okay, what's the deal?
Mm-hmm.
But, man, this feels, in St. Louis, this feels like it's come out of nowhere. I don't think, if somebody's being truly honest, I don't think anybody who knows baseball would have ever even remotely predicted this. I mean, they just look bad. The lineup doesn't even look that great, and we thought it might be the deepest lineup in all of Major League Baseball. Yeah. But the pitching's atrocious. The bullpen's been not good. I mean, they need to call Yadi Molina yesterday and be like, hey, what do we got to do to get you just not even behind the plate, but just in the dugout with these guys? Because I don't know what happened when Yadi left that organization, but it's fallen apart. Yeah. And like, you think of guys like Paul Goldschmidt and Arenado as consummate professionals and leaders, and I'm sure that they are, but I would have never ever thought of this happening. It's amazing.
It's been unbelievable. I saw a statistic. It had a picture of Montgomery, Matz, Michaelis, and Jay Flair. Everybody's ERA is over 6. You're not going to win. You're not going to win any games like that. And then you deal with the fact that the back half of the bullpen, Helsley has not been good. I don't particularly agree with how they've been using him. Marmol has been deploying him in the 7th inning, which I understand. Sometimes you want to attack the heart of the order. He has not looked good. I think they're going to win today, but the Tigers have been taking care of them, and it's not something you typically see. Of course, they also swept the Mets before going to St. Louis, so maybe there's something we need to talk about with Detroit. Maybe they're a little bit better than we give them credit for. I don't know. You got to imagine at some point Nolan Arenado is going to turn it around. Yeah. For fantasy-wise, if he's out there, I would, and you need a third baseman, I would send a pretty solid offer because I think you could entice some people. That's all I got. They're in trouble if they don't figure something out. And this is now, if you're Milwaukee and Chicago and Pittsburgh, but I think I got to see Pittsburgh go a little bit longer before I'm like really, really a believer. But now is time to put your foot down on the pedal and go if you're those teams.
Yes.
Our next team, maybe kind of hot, maybe cold, the Philadelphia Phillies. How do you feel about them?
Oh, man, I would say close to a 5 because I could see it going either way for them right now. Bryce Harper came back sooner than anybody would have ever thought, which is incredible news for not only the Phillies but just Major League Baseball in general. So that's awesome. That they're, other than missing out on Rhys Hoskins because he's out for the year, that lineup is essentially back to full strength. So that's obviously a good thing. The problem is their pitching's been way, way, way worse than we ever thought that they would be.
Yeah.
Wheeler and Nola at the top of that rotation both haven't really figured it out just yet. And, honestly, with those two struggling as bad as they have so far, they're actually in a decent spot because they're not just totally out of it, so far. So I'm at a 5. I like their lineup. I have to believe that Nola and Wheeler figure it out at some point because they are, they've proven to be two of the better pitchers in the whole National League over the last several years. So as long as that happens, I feel like that they're going to be right there in the mix for that final wild card spot. And, I think the lineup's going to be fine. The bullpen's been okay.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I actually feel fairly optimistic about them, at least at this stage.
Yeah, you got to think Nola and Wheeler will bounce back. So I'm right there with you on that. They were getting some production out of Bailey Falter, that young lefty, who I think's got nasty stuff, but I don't know. I watched his start the other day, and he was just missing. And of course, going up against the red-hot Boston Red Sox, what a buzzsaw of a team, But no, we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, like you said, I love everything about their lineup. If their pitching can get together, I think they'll roll. And honestly, that's been the MO with the Phillies for a few years now. And if they're good enough to get in the playoffs, that rotation still plays extremely well in a 3, 5, or 7-game series.
Yep.
So
just get in. Just get in.
Yep. And I feel like we might land on a very similar place. We'll talk about another NL East team and then move on. Will, what's your panic meter on the New York Mets? I mean, everybody anointed them, including myself, the division champion going into this year, and they are sputtering to say the least.
Man, I'm actually more worried about the Mets than I am the Phillies for some reason, and I honestly don't know why. But I do know why. Here's why. So we had concerns going into the season. We both mentioned this about those top two guys in the rotation getting up there in age, and they've both already started to show a little bit of signs of, I hate to even say it, but they've showed a little bit of sign of decline. Scherzer doesn't look quite the same as far as just his overall stuff. His velocity's been a little bit down. Verlander started the year on the IL. He just came back. Pitched pretty well on his first start, but I don't know, man. And the guys behind those two do not excite me. And losing Edwin Diaz, man, we know how good Edwin Diaz is, and when you don't have that just surefire lockdown guy in the ninth, man, it does something to your team. And and I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on here, but man, that lineup has gone ice cold this past week or two as well. And so, I mean, if you've got all of that stuff that we're just laying out here, you're not going to win many games. Yeah. And so, I don't know. I'm going to put it at about a 6 right now. But, man, that lineup has to start producing to pick up that pitching.
Yeah, I would say, to me, the number depends on what we get out of Max Scherzer. And I'm not going to dive in it too much because we're going to dive into it later in the show. But, I'm with you. I mean, you got those two horses at the top. And if they don't go, I honestly do feel like the lineup will figure it out. I'm not worried about it. But they're cold, man. McNeil, not doing much. Marte, been a security blanket for you a lot of years, not doing much. And so, and that's just, obviously Polar Bear Pete was hitting home runs about once a day, it felt like a couple weeks ago. He's gone pretty cold. He was carrying me in points leagues, and I'm like, why is this team doing so good? I start looking at it. It's like, oh, he hadn't hit a home run in a week. So, no, that's the cold teams, Will. Let's talk about the hot players. Give me your heat check player of the week, my man.
So we've had an interesting week. And I will say, regrettably, this guy that I'm about to throw out there, I played against him in a head-to-head league this week, and he has been incredible.
Yeah, pest.
Dalton Varsho for the Blue Jays has figured it out. He a week ago today, he was hitting about 180. And this week he's hitting almost 500. He's added a hit or two already today to get him into double digits for the week. He's hit 2 home runs, and he's had 2 stolen bases, and only, I think, like 2 strikeouts the whole week. So he's been unbelievable this week and has really sunk my team for this week playing against him.
Yeah, well, that's what, playing against the Pirates will get you, man. They have lit up the Pirates pitching to start this week and finish off last week. Yeah, he's a stud. His numbers still don't look great, so maybe go out and see if you can trade for him. He went pretty high in drafts just because he had that catcher eligibility, but he's something special. He's a lot of fun to watch. I always forget he's like a Gold Glove outfielder, and it's yeah, they got it going on in Toronto. They've been doing a great job there. For me, it's the main man. I've waited a long time for this guy, Fernando Tatis Jr. I know that's like, wow, what a cold take. Cody's picking the top 5 player for Heat Check of the Week. Well, when I was diving in trying to think who I wanted to talk about, I was going to land on Kershaw because he had a lights-out start. But it ended up being I think it was either Saturday or Sunday. And I don't even remember who he pitched against. It was like 7 scoreless innings against the 1-0 against the Cardinals. That's who it was. And he looked amazing. And so I was like, well, can't use that day. I saw on the calendar they were playing the Padres on Friday night, which has just been a great series for anybody who's watched and can't wait to watch. On ESPN tonight, there's a little plug for Espen. But so I sit down to watch that game on Friday, and what does Tatis do? He hammers 2 home runs off of a Hall of Fame caliber guy, and there's nothing you can say other than, Nando's back, guys. And if you waited like I did, a year plus to put him in the lineup, boy, does it not feel good. He's knocking off the rust, 9 for 29 with 2 doubles, 3 home runs, 5 RBIs, and a 1.023 OPS. It's about time. We missed this guy. I hope he can stay healthy. It's bad when he gets on base, and I'm like, don't steal. Just don't steal. I don't want you to get hurt. Same thing happened with Michael Harris today, as a matter of fact. But, no, pretty excited. And let's watch this San Diego team go into summertime with their core 4 at full effect. Speaking of summertime and hot and new segments. Well, this is the worst transition ever. Mayday, mayday, get me out of here. Our new segment, hot off the press, is the MLB News and Notes segment. Guys, you got to have those if you're talking about Major League Baseball. So let's hit on the number one thing we talked about in the title. And, yeah, let's talk about it. Harper back 2 months early from injury. They were saying originally July this guy will be back, maybe, around the All-Star break. He said, nope. Just kidding. I'm going to put this bionic arm on if Major League Baseball will let me every time I get on base, which it turns out is a lot. He's one of the best players to ever do it. And he's just been incredible. 6 for 16, a 375 average, 1 double, and 1 home run. What do you got on Harper, dude? It's good to have him back in baseball.
It is. It is definitely good to have him back. But, man, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like he blew all the expectations out of the water, and I was even more surprised that they didn't essentially make him at least have a couple of rehab starts, in the minors, and he was like, nope, I don't need it. Yeah. And I tell you what, after that first game, the first game you could tell he was his timing was all messed up, but
0 for 4 with 3 Ks.
But dude, man, he found it. I mean, like he looks like he hasn't missed any time now. I've watched him the last couple of games, and man, he looks as good as ever. And so, man, yeah, I wish I would have drafted him several rounds earlier than he went.
Well, that's the question I got on the sheet, man. I mean, because especially in redraft, I was like, I'm staying away from this guy. I tried to grab him in a couple dynasty leagues, but in redraft, I'm just not interested in somebody who's going to play half the year, even at pick 100 or 150, wherever he was going, ADP. If you knew he was coming back 1 month, essentially, into the year, that's what Acuna did. I mean, what round are you taking this guy if you know he's coming back in May?
I mean, I would have taken him probably, I don't know, 3rd, 4th round minimum.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like kind of surface value, just like Acuna. Acuna slipped a little bit. But I guess Harper would slip a little bit more because he has the util only thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, good for all the Harper owners out there. Here's a question for you, Will. Say you have him. Do you maybe try and flip him now that he's back early? I mean, there's another piece you didn't think you were going to have. That's another domino you have.
Yeah, no, I mean, depending on how you feel about your roster, I mean, if if you feel like you need if you have a massive hole at another position, you could obviously trade. But I don't know, man. If it was me and I had him, I would probably hang on to him for a little while.
Yeah. Yep. Same here. He's so much fun to watch. That guy, and we've talked about it before, but it's just incredible what he's done, and what an incredible career just to be in the spotlight as long as he has been, and to like live up to the bill. It is pretty special, and so he's been a joy to watch. We're happy to have him back. Speaking of people coming back, and I might butcher this name, Rysel Iglesias. No, it sure didn't, Will. Should just go in more confident next time. The Atlanta Braves are happy to hand the ball back to anybody not named Minter. He's looked great in a couple of scoreless starts, or relief appearances, rather, since coming back a couple of days ago. What do you think about him?
Man, I think it's going to really, really help the Braves a ton. Mm-hmm. It felt like A.J. Minter was kind of out of his element, trying to shut down games in the ninth. Some guys just aren't built for that, and I think A.J. Minter is a great relief pitcher, but it was obvious that he just wasn't comfortable in that role.
Yeah,
and to have a guy who's proven to be a solid ninth inning guy over the years, and Iglesias now back and arguably in the most talented roster in the majors, I feel like it completes that team again. And so, I don't know. Like I think the Braves are the class of the National League, to be honest. I know it's early, but if they're clicking on all cylinders, I think if you open it up to all of Major League Baseball, I think Tampa and the Braves are clearly the best two teams right now.
Yeah, and Orlando Arcia's back. So, and I think they're going to go with him over Grissom, which they probably should. He just offers a little bit more in the power department, and defensively, for sure, he's an upgrade over Grissom. Thing about Minter that just kind of hit me this morning when I was looking at it, the thing about him not being a closer is that allows Brian Snitker to deploy him when the lane's a little bit better for lefties. So here's what I'm going to say. If he's out there, because I dropped him in a couple leagues. I mean, if he's out there and you're in a holds plus saves league, maybe take a chance at him. Maybe spend a little fab on him. It probably won't cost you that much, and I think he will slide right back in. He's looked good in his last couple appearances. Hasn't given up any runs, and his K per nine's like 10.5. So, he's always got the strikeout stuff. But yeah, I'm gotta be happy for the Braves. They're pretty excited. Well, I don't know that we've told you this. We're heading to a Red Sox Braves game next week. So
oh, nice.
We're gonna watch them in person. We're pretty excited about it. But speaking of things we're excited about, here's some stuff we're not excited about. Transition game is not on point today, Will. Okay, I should have worked on that a little bit. IL update. Let's talk about it. Judge on the 10-day IL with some hip issues like we talked about last week. Should be back on Monday for the last place Yankees. Really not a note that needs to be brought up, but I just wanted to bring up the Yankees are in last place. DeGrom, they placed him earlier this week on the 15-day IL with some elbow forearm tightness. They're going to give him about 7-10 days to take a break. No throwing for you. No clear timeline. He's looked great this year, a 2.67 ERA with 45 Ks to 4 walks. What? Dude's disgusting. When do you think we'll see him again? I mean, what do you got on that? Anything?
Man, I mean, it's hard to speculate on injuries, to begin with, but especially talking about DeGrom, I mean, this guy's just all of a sudden has turned into a guy that you just can't, and I hate to say it, you can't really rely on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I hope that we see him back very soon. Just because I think he's by far the best player of maybe this generation as far as talent goes, pitching wise. But Man, I don't know. Anytime you're dealing with an arm injury, especially on a guy that's already had some injury concerns, man, it's tough. I hope it's minor, but I'm not holding my breath for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna know a lot more when they kind of take a look under the hood here in the next 7 days, and when he's able to toss again, see how he feels. But we talked about this last week. He looked dejected
Yeah.
on the mound, like he knew something was amiss. I would not be surprised if we don't see him again this year, and that would just break my heart because it's just so exciting to watch him play and do his thing. It's just like Harper, man. He's just much. They're both must-watch TV, and you just need to stop what you're doing and watch these guys perform. But I mean, as a Rangers fan, you got to just be watching him like nervous. I couldn't watch. I couldn't watch DeGrom starts if I was a Rangers fan because I would just be petrified. Or a fantasy owner. I mean, his value is gonna drop. I don't know. I think if I have DeGrom now, there's an argument. I don't know that I do this because obviously upside is probably more, but there's a world where you might try and flip him just before, if somebody you think will take the leap and maybe you can flip him for something. But I think the likelihood is we might be in trouble with DeGrom, and just like you said, if DeGrom's in trouble, Texas is in trouble.
Yes.
Let's talk a couple Astros here, buddy. Urquidy, right shoulder inflammation. He's going to be shut down for throwing for a couple more days, and then they'll reevaluate. But the big hitter, Luis Garcia, just found out it's going to have Tommy John surgery. He'll be out until about midway of next season, if not all of 2024. Are the Astros in trouble rotation-wise?
I think they are. If I'm an Astros fan, I'm starting to get concerned because, don't forget that Verlander walked out the door this offseason. And now when you have Garcia, going down for the year, man, it's tough. I mean, you're going to have to just heavily rely on Valdez, which we know how good Valdez and Javier are at the top of that rotation, but you're going to really have to lean into Hunter Brown. He's going to have to throw more innings than he's probably ever had to throw before. Yeah. I don't know. I'm starting to get concerned if I'm an Astros fan, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, bat signal, right? Where's McCullers? This is where we need McCullers to just come in. He put a cape on him. He'll walk through the door, da-da-da-da-da. It's Lance McCullers time, which he doesn't seem close. They have not started a rehab assignment with him yet, but he will be a welcome sight if and when he's able to come back. And then I guess the only other thing that J.P. France looked okay.
Yeah.
What is his name? He was that prospect. Forrest Whitley is getting roughed up in AAA, so you can't go to him. You make a move at the deadline if you're competitive.
I think they're going to have to. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I'm in the camp of I'm not betting against Houston. And then last thing, Will, on this IL update, Rodon. Not progressing. They're saying no timeline. It's going to be a chronic back issue. If you have him, I mean, is he droppable at this point, or you wait and see? You probably drafted him early, depending on when you did your draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as you've got an open IL spot, you leave him there until you get more information on it. But, man, it's concerning. It's one thing to have the forearm issue, which is a concern for sure. But, man, it's a whole other deal when you're dealing with some sort of chronic back injury. That definitely doesn't sound good. I'm not a doctor, but that does not sound promising. But to answer your question, if I've got an open IL spot, I'm going to leave him there until I get a, more clear timeline. But that's tough news.
It's not great, man. No, I have him in a couple of leagues that we're in together, and I thought, this would be a good stash, and maybe in August. Stay competitive until August, and then we'll see what happens. I don't know. It's a bummer, man. Think about the last two pitchers the Yankees had brought over on either trades or free agency between he and Montas. What? That's got to be infuriating as a Yankees fan, especially when you're struggling in that rotation. All right. We busted out the team panic meter. Let's bust out the player panic meter in this edition of There's Smoke, but Is There Fire? Let's start with the Met. You like that? Will's smiling if you're on YouTube.
It.
I mean to tell you. Yeah, you're the man, dude. Okay. So let's start with that Mets duo. We touched on them a little bit. Let's talk about Scherzer first. And remember, of course, we have our simmer, campfire. I instated the third level, which is a windy campfire. And then you got your blaze. Okay. I was thinking all week, you got anything between a simmer and a campfire that could go there as like a second? I can't think anything. Maybe like a Roman camp. I don't know.
That's a good question. We'll think about that one.
We'll workshop it. Anybody else got something? Just let us know. Shout out to my buddy Keith at work. If you're listening to this, he was pitching all kinds of ideas for segment names, Will. So he's a hoot. But anyway, let's talk about Max Scherzer here. Only made it 3.1 innings in his first start back from the 10-day suspension. Where I don't know if you dove into the spin rates, but they were way down. 1 base on ball, 3 Ks, gave up 6 earned runs against the Rays? No, it was the Detroit Tigers. Are we concerned about this?
I am starting to get concerned, yeah. I'm not to a blaze yet, or maybe not even to a windy campfire, but I'm to a campfire. Yeah. Because I mean, we touched on it kind of in the off season and in our preview show. We talked about how towards the end of last year, he was starting to show some signs of not quite being Max Scherzer. And, obviously last year he fought some injuries. But, man, this year, I don't know, man. It just doesn't look the same to me. I mean, obviously, I know that they can quantify all the spin rates now, and that's helpful. But, man, I don't know. It just doesn't look right. I know he's got the highest of high standards, as he should. Had an incredible career, but at some point, everybody starts to show signs, and I'm starting to see them out of Max. And so I'm not to a blaze, like I said, but I'm concerned. And if I'm a Mets fan, oh, man, I'm not loving what I'm seeing right now.
No, not at all, man. The velo's down from that guy, which is concerning. I mean, at some point it's going to happen. I guess I'd rather it happen now than October.
Yeah.
And figure it out. I don't know if Buck Showalter. I think I called him Showhalter, by the way, on a previous episode, and I just want to put that out there. That's definitely not his name. That was a little just a misspeak by me. He's going to have to figure out a way to keep these guys healthy. That's the only way this is going to work. So, yeah, we'll see with him. What about the other guy? Verlander came in, pitched okay, gave up back-to-back homers in the first, but made it 5 innings with 5 Ks and 1 walk. Other than that, pretty solid, but just got outdueled by Erod, who's just still rolling. Could have been a heat check back-to-back weeks. We worried about Verlander at all?
I'm not overly concerned about Verlander, at least right now. I would say it's just kind of a slow simmer for me at the moment. I mean, do I think he's vintage Verlander from, 10 years ago? No.
Yeah.
Is he to the level where he was pitching at the beginning of last year with Houston? Probably not. But do I think he's going to be a really, really good starter all year, barring injury? I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not overly concerned. I guess the only concern I have is, is the injury 100%?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, I have very little concern. If the answer is no, if he's going to have that, continue to linger and maybe flare up again at some point in the long season, then I would be concerned. So really it just boils down to his health at this point for me.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Again, I'm not betting against this guy. He is so dominant, and I think he will find it. I think he found it after the first inning. Velo still looked good. He's always done that. He has something left in the tank late in his starts, and he can keep that velo up. It's pretty special. From a couple of aces in the north side of the United States of America. Let's talk about an ace from the southeast. Sandy Alcantara, 1-3 with a 5.09 ERA, 31 Ks to 12 walks. How you feeling on him?
I am somewhere between a simmer and a campfire, and we'll have to figure out what that might be. But I don't know. Here's my thing with Sandy is I've never understood, even like last year and the year prior when he was really emerging as one of the game's best pitchers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I've never quite understood why his Ks per nine were still – like, they were good, don't get me wrong, but they weren't up there in kind of the upper echelon of starting pitchers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like with the new rules and with the ball getting put in play just more in general, and it's seemingly more offense this year than we've seen over really a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's going to really hurt a guy like Sandy who doesn't get as many strikeouts as you might think he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I definitely think he's going to progress to the mean in a positive direction. Like, I don't think he's going to be this, I hate to say bad,
Sure.
but I think it'll level off a little bit for him as long as he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't think he's going to put up the same numbers that maybe we expected going into the season, and definitely not what he did last year.
Yeah, well, a couple things. He's been bad. I would say it's probably a campfire. When you look at the underlying numbers, that's the odd thing. Like, everything looks pretty similar. The only thing that's any different at all is the fact that the walk rate's up a little bit, from about 2 to 3%, or 2 walks per game to 3 walks per game, and then the home run rate has doubled from 0.6 to about a home run a game. Other than that, Ks per 9 looks good. All the velo stuff looks good. I know he's pitched in some games. As far as the losses go, he's pitched in some games where he's been opposed by people who haven't given up any runs. And so that's always tough when you're playing for the Marlins. If you're not perfect, they're not going to score a ton of runs. That's the thing. I try and buy low on him. And if you have him, I wouldn't give him away for anything that's not, peak Sandy value, because I do think he'll bounce back. I do. He just hasn't shown us he'll do anything less than that. So
Yeah.
He's one of our best. He just hasn't shown it. This next guy, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this guy. Teoscar Hernandez, Will, he's got a 213 batting average, 7 home runs, which isn't bad, 16 RBIs. But listen to this. This is where it gets gross, dude. 3 walks, 45 strikeouts. That's a walk rate of 2.3. K rate of 35%. That is like tops in the league. He is 94% rostered. And I texted you a couple days ago and said, is Teoscar Hernandez the worst player to be rostered in the 90th percentile? He is bad. Where are we with this guy?
Yeah, everything you just said is, that's as bad as it gets at the major league level, honestly. Yeah, if it was me, I'm at an inferno.
Yeah.
If he was on my roster, he would not be on my roster anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think that there was something. We've talked about this in the past, that how when certain guys get moved, either through trade or free agency, some guys just don't take it well. And they don't adjust well to the new environment. It's one of those things that you can't really explain, but it's something. And I feel like this might be a case here. We haven't even mentioned, obviously, Toronto is much more of a hitter-friendly park as opposed to Seattle. So that's got to be at least a little bit of a factor. But, man, when you have a walk, when you've only walked 3 times and struck out 45, man, you're just not seeing it. And yeah, man, at this point, man, it's an inferno. If you've got somebody on the wire or another position you need to address, it'd be time for me to cut bait. I mean, we've got enough of a sample size to at least make that determination now.
Here's what makes it tough. And I am a Teoscar owner, and I still have him on my roster. But I'll tell you this: I have Schwarber and Teoscar, who you could put Schwarber on here. I decided not to because his numbers are kind of pretty parallel to where they usually live, just low average, but he's hitting home runs. And every time you bench him, he does well, and every time you start him, he strikes out 4 times. That just is what it is. Maybe he's more of a Roto League play. With Teoscar, it's tough, especially because there's so many guys who have come up who are outfield eligible that you're like, man, a Rooker, an Outman, Josh Lowe, your SD, nope. Why'd I go to Ruiz? Kellenic. Dude, that's a great one. Kellenic. And it's just, it feels like it should be easier. I'm hanging on because I think he might turn around. He is in the midst of a 4-game hitting streak. Still not looking great. But the thing about dropping people, and this is something you're wholeheartedly going to disagree with because you would have dropped this guy a long time ago.
You're right.
I feel like mentally I'm going to drop him. Somebody's going to pick him up and be like, 0-0 on my team, baby. 0-0 on my team. And that's not true. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think we both might be right. I'm feeling pretty wrong currently. I would call it a windy campfire. And when one of my relief pitchers comes off the IL, he's probably going to be the first one sitting back there.
It's an inferno.
It's an inferno. It's the sun. You're on the sun if you own Teoscar.
Yeah, you're getting very close to the sun.
You should drop him so you don't melt away. Okay, just don't.
Yes.
Yep, don't do it. Okay, speaking of guys who have pretty solid track records, but I don't know what's happening. First year in Houston not going as planned for Jose Abreu with a 232 batting average. No home runs. That's weird. 13 RBIs, 5 base on balls, 27 Ks. Is he showing his age, or is this a slow start, Will?
So we've turned the tables here because I have Jose Abreu in one of our leagues, and man, he's as bad can be.
Yeah.
And until a couple of days ago when I found me a first baseman that could actually replace him, like I didn't have much of an option but to ride it out.
Mm-hmm.
But he is about to get dropped. I'll tell you that. I mean, because I've watched Houston play quite a few games, and I'll explain it this way. I don't remember who they were playing, but this has been about a week or two ago.
Here we go.
And I swear to you, it looked like he barreled up a ball. And it was okay. When I saw it, when at the angle that, you know, when you watch a Major League Baseball game and the standard camera angle that's right behind the pitcher, you know, so pitcher throws the ball, Jose Abreu makes contact. Initially, when he made that contact, I was like, oh. Like, you know, when you see a good swing and a home run, you like, as soon as you see get contact, you're like, ooh.
Ding dong, let's go, baby.
Yeah, and so I kind of thought that. Like, I knew he barreled this ball up.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear to you, it was a can of corn to the center fielder. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I feel like if this was Jose Abreu 3 years ago in Chicago, this ball would have cleared the fences easily.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. It was like the center fielder barely had to move. And so I say all that to say, I don't know if it's age related. I don't know what it is. But the guy looks like a shell of himself right now. And I'm with you, what you kind of said about Teoscar. Like, I'm a little bit with you as far as, like, I hesitate to drop a guy like that because he's honestly one of the most consistent guys normally in the league.
Yeah.
And I thought going into the year that this was, like, one of the better under-the-radar type of moves in the offseason, bringing him to Houston. But maybe the White Sox actually got something right there because he looks bad right now.
Yeah, well, the thing is, last year and obviously throughout his career, he's always hit for average, and that has dissipated this year, and that's a wild thing to me. This guy just doesn't seem to be. Could always go the other way. He
Yes.
could hit to all fields, and I thought, okay, he's going to Houston, Crawford boxes. Let's
Yep.
pop a few over there. That just hasn't happened. It's been so weird, and. Yeah, I made this list earlier in the week. His batting average is 223 now, a 527 OPS. I'm sorry. There's other guys out there that I'd rather have at first base. And okay, what about this? Matt Mervis came up for the Cubs. Would you take him over Jose right now?
That's tough just because I mean, you know me pretty well, Cody, and my preferences. Like, I prefer to wait and see on some hot prospects more so than others. So, I mean, I guess the short answer is no, just because I want to actually see Mervis, like, produce at the major league level for more than a few games before I either anoint him as being a minor leaguer or a future star. So I don't know, it's tough. I would probably still say Abreu, but I tell you what, like I said, I mean, I am very close to dropping him. I mean, I just don't see I hate to say it, but I don't see him having. I feel like his average will progress like towards a little bit more towards the mean.
Yeah.
It feel like it can't go anywhere but up, but like I don't see him as being a super valuable player anymore. Like I really don't.
Yeah. What about Casas? Would you take him over Tristan Casas?
If Casas wouldn't have gotten off to such a horrible start, and if Casas, I will say this, if Casas shows signs of figuring it out, I would absolutely say yes. But I need to see out of Casas. I know he's got all the talent in the world, but I need to see him prove that he can be a consistent everyday lineup guy and produce consistently in that Boston lineup for me to say yes.
Yeah. I'd take both those prospects over him.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is Jose Abreu's still 83% rostered.
I know.
Mervis is 45, Casas is 23. So the masses agree with you, but he's like you've said a couple times now, he just not giving you a lot offensively.
He just doesn't look right, man. There's something that doesn't look right, and I don't know what it is, but it's not the same.
Yeah. I think I know the answer, but let's do our last guy here, Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt kind of started out slow, similar to last year. Then kind of hit his stride in the second half. But 237 average, 5 home runs. That's not bad. 13 RBIs, 21 runs, 8 stolen bases. You can pretty much take that to the bank. This is a Royals team that almost got swept. I think they held off the vaunted Oakland A's, Las Vegas A's, whatever we're going to call them. How you feeling on Bobby Witt? I mean, I know you're not dropping him, but are you trying to flip him at some point? Or, I mean, obviously, dynasty versus redraft. In a redraft league, what are you doing?
Yeah, in a redraft league, I am. I'm shopping him around. Okay. I mean, I said this. I don't want to say I told you so yet, but if any of our listeners go back and listen to kind of our off season and preview type shows before the season got going, like y'all knew that I wasn't jumping on the Bobby Witt like runaway hype train.
Say it, Will. Will's keeping receipts, guys. He's coming after you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just feel like the hype was getting out of control, to be honest with you.
Yeah. He went 7 overall, dude.
I know, and that that's
7.
I said it. I said, be careful passing up on some future Hall of Famers for this guy. Yep. And obviously you said the 8 stolen bases. I mean, we know he's going to steal bases. Yep. We know he's going to hit some home runs. But here's the thing. He's also got some things going against him. Sure. He's yet to prove that he's going to be able to hit for even an average batting average by major league standards. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's one thing. He's in an awful lineup. I mean, I like Vinny Pasquantino.
Mm-hmm.
I like Sal Perez. But, man, the Royals don't have anybody other than those guys. And so that lineup's not doing him any favors. I don't know, man. Like I said when we were really talking about him in the preview shows, the only saving grace for him is that he still has third base eligibility. And third base has, as we kind of predicted, been kind of a wasteland this year, with a lot of guys struggling. And so for me, that's the only thing other than stolen bases that's kind of saving his value to an extent.
Yeah, otherwise he gets eaten alive with the other shortstops out there that are better. Okay, no third base eligibility. Do you like Bobby Witt or Jeremy Pena?
See, I'm not as big of a Jeremy Pena guy as some people are.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jeremy Pena is one of those guys, and I truly mean this as a compliment. I think he's a way better actual baseball player than fantasy player. I always thought this about Carlos Correa, too. I think Carlos Correa is a lot better actual baseball player than he is fantasy baseball player. And so if they're only eligible at short, I'm still taking Bobby Witt just because of the power-speed combination. With Jeremy Pena, if he hit a little bit higher average and he showed me that he could do that more consistently, then I might lean otherwise. But honestly, I don't feel like Jeremy Pena. Bobby Witt will crush him in stolen bases, and I don't think the average will be that huge of a gap, by once we get through most of the season.
Yeah. Would you rather have Witt at 7 or Harper at 7 and then get Pena in the 15th? Where
100%. Give me Bryce Harper and Pena all day long.
That's true. True. Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, guys. We're running a little long on this show, and I absolutely love it because I miss talking to Will, and we're having a lot of fun here. Okay, last segment, and it's a new one, and it's one I'm pretty excited about. And let me talk about it. It's called the Roman Candle Player of the Week. All right, and if those are familiar with that, of course is a firework. What do fireworks do, Will?
They explode.
Let's just say they go off. We didn't talk about this. We didn't rehearse this. This goes up. They go off. So we're each going to pick a player and who we think is going to go off this week. And essentially, we're just going to kind of keep track of who it is and how they do. And we're going to keep a tally between myself and Will. And I was trying to think, how do we want to do this? We want to do like a 50 percentile roster. I decided that's not that much fun. Let's just pick a player we like, and we'll keep the numbers, and then we'll keep a tally. So,
but we're also not gonna pick like a guy who's like currently on a 20-game hit streak, right?
I pick Tatis every week, and then next week as well.
Right. So these like the guys that we're gonna try to pick aren't necessarily like the hottest guys going right now.
Yeah.
But some of them might be high-profile guys that maybe are trying to get going, and others might be a little bit lower under the radar guys.
Here we go, Will. Take it away, my friend, with our very first Roman Candle Player of the Week.
So I'm going to go we talked about this team actually quite a bit on this episode. I'm going to Queens, and I'm looking for their several $100 million man to start showing up, and that is Francisco Lindor. I think that Buck Showalter is going to have to really light a fire somehow, some way with these guys. I don't like, we've talked about it, I don't like what's going on right now with the Mets.
Yeah.
And I think that Francisco Lindor has to get going. I feel like he's kind of their spark plug. When he gets going, I feel like the whole lineup's going to change. And so this is the week. So I'm going to Francisco Lindor. They get the week started in Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. So that's a good place to get the kind of the spark going.
Yep.
And I think he's going to have a big week. So I'm going Frankie Lindor, and let's see what happens.
I like it. That's the thing about the Mets, man. They got that great offense. At some point, they're all going to roll. I mean, I remember saying I think I said it on here. They're not all going to go cold at once. Well, that's kind of
They
happened.
have.
And that coupled with the pitching, this is what you get. I like that call. I think it's pretty funny. We both kind of picked a guy based on matchups. I did the same thing. I picked Carlos Santana, kind of a throwback guy who's been doing it for a while. Had a rough couple of years. Got traded from the Royals to Seattle last season and was pretty special for the Mariners in the latter half of the season. He's 13% rostered this year. I have him in a couple leagues, believe it or not, taking up the corner infield spot. He's been that solid, but I like his matchups against the Rockies and the Orioles. Anytime you go to Colorado, I'm all about that. And then this is just me not buying into the Orioles rotation. I believe, unless it changed today, I think they have the last ERA ranking in all of Major League Baseball. So for starters, now their bullpen's like 8th. So maybe get after those starters for the Orioles there. Carlos had an okay year. 270 batting average, 2 home runs, 19 RBIs, and 3 steals. So that obviously comes out. I bet you he has more steals than Lindor will. I bet. Okay, for next week, maybe, probably not. Dude, anything else before we hop off here? This has been awesome.
It's been a lot. We've covered a lot of stuff for sure. But no, I mean, I feel like we've touched on a lot of things happening in the majors right now. Lot of shuffling right now. We're gonna see how these. I think we're gonna really learn a lot about standings and certain teams over these next 2 to 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're gonna really have a lot clearer picture on who kind of the contenders are gonna be and who the pretenders are. And these next 2 to 3 weeks are gonna tell us a lot.
I'm excited. Can't wait to see it. We'll hop back on the fantasy train. Maybe talk a little bit more about that next week and just keep rolling, guys. We really appreciate you. If you made it to the YouTube side of things, leave a comment because I figured out how to fix that now. And just say hi. That would be so much fun. And then obviously for those listening on the podcast, we always appreciate you guys. Where we started. That's where we started. So reach out to us on Twitter, guys, at BTH_Cody and at Will Sism. Great luck in week 6. But until next time, thanks for listening to episode 29 of Bringing the Heat.